Hello, everybody out there in Twitter land, YouTube, wherever it is you happen to be stumbling across this particular episode of Fighting the Void. Ginger here again, as usual. And with me once more is my lovely co-host, Crystal. This time down at the bottom of the stack, as opposed to all the way over to the right. And in between us today, we have another longtime friend of the show, Paige Rogers, returning after a far too long absence.
Yeah.
And you can find her on the on the Twitters at the Lay Artist or Lay Artiste, if you want to be like that. But today, Paige is with us to educate us a little bit about the Holy Land, because her and her husband just got back from there a few weeks ago. And if you notice, I'm going to be having some I'm going to have a slideshow going in the background, just all pictures that Paige took while she was there. We might be stopping along the way to talk about some of them in more detail. So enjoy the words, enjoy the pretty pictures. All right. So Paige, my goodness, Holy Land.
Yes, and let me correct you. It was actually my mother and myself that went.
Oh, I'm sorry.
John had to tend to all of the duties. He had to man the ship at everywhere while we were going.
Well, dang. Well, that was the other lovely lady I saw in the pictures.
Yes.
Oh, excellent. So you and your mom got to go check out the Holy Land. First of all, what brought this on? This is no small undertaking.
No, well, it sort of happened by accident. Her church group, or a group at her church, she found out about the trip through them, and it had been planned, but a bunch of people had just backed out because they were mostly elderly and were not able to walk a certain distance, because there is a lot of walking and climbing and hiking and just standing involved. And all of a sudden all these tickets opened up, and she said, hey, you want to go? And we had to decide maybe the next day or so. And at first I thought, ooh, I don't know about going over that big ocean. But then I said, yeah, let's do it.
Into your senses.
So we just couldn't pass up a trip to the Holy Land.
No, I would think not. Not if it's just falling in your lap and it's like, oh, we should totally go now.
And it was just so special to go with my mother.
Oh, I'll bet.
And she just rocked it the whole time. She's 75 and she just was kicking tail. She did all the hiking, everything. She was just
nice. And you can see, even just looking at the pictures, you can see that, yeah, you clearly had to scale some heights while you were there. Yeah. And it's not exactly made for the nothing in the area is made for the modern couch potato.
No, it is not.
So,
but it's so worth it. If you can go, then it's just so worth it.
So you went as part of a big tour group.
Yes, through my mother's church.
Yep. I gotta admit, if I were to go, that's probably the way that I would go. I wouldn't trust myself to navigate over there on my own. Europe, still, yes, I would still trust myself to navigate that on my own. But given weekly news items from that corner of the planet, I'll go as a big group so they know where to go, where not to go.
Yeah. Yes, saying. Definitely. Well, and that was actually worth it because we went to different areas of the Holy Land. So we were in 2 different countries. And when we were in one country, we were all over it. So just having a guide with us and being in a group really worked out. Especially in certain areas, there would be a security guard if necessary. So it was definitely worth it to go with a big group.
Oh, I'm sure. So where all did you go?
Oh, goodness. Okay. So, the 2 countries where we were Israel, and the other one was Jordan. We went to, gosh, I'm like, oh, goodness.
A dog or What is that?
Yes, I'm sorry. That's the dog. Houston.
I was gonna say, I'm like, is that a dog lapping a water? Or
yes, I'm sorry.
No.
It's I think that was like for some reason like I don't know why this would be, but it's like I thought it was like someone like off camera going like I don't know why.
That would be weird. That would be very
sorry.
strange.
I thought I had put him in the bedroom, but apparently I left him out and put the other one in.
You're fine. It adds character. All right. So what else? So anyway, before we got distracted here, Israel and Jordan.
Yes. So we went to the major places. So Bethlehem, Nazareth, Jerusalem. We also we got to go through Magdala. So Mary of Magdalene, it was from Magdala. And we went to the ruins in Jordan. We went to the ruins of Jerash. And we also got to go to Petra, which was fantastic.
Nice.
Other places were the old city of Jaffa. We went through Haifa. And Jericho.
Nice.
And along the Jordan River and the Dead Sea and the Sea of Galilee. And so we pretty much hit a lot. I mean, we hit a lot of the stops of where you think major events in the Bible happen, whether it's Christ's walk or as far back as Moses.
Wow. So what are some of these things that that we're looking at here? I can certainly pick out a few things because I've actually, as part of my freelance writing, I've written a lot about various sites in the Holy Land, although I haven't been there, so you've got me beat. But, I could definitely point out some of these things, but you are the resident expert.
Well, that picture right there is actually the path, the road where Christ walked. It's moved along now, but when he was arrested in the Garden of Gethsemane. Yep.
Ah. So at the top is the actual garden?
No, it's actually down below. He was taken up this way. So to the right of this image is a church now. And it's where Caiaphas was. And there is the tomb, the chamber, I'm trying to think of the word to describe it. Basically, when he was imprisoned, awaiting trial the next day, he was arrested in the Garden of Gethsemane. And what we're looking at here is the path that he walked with the soldiers. And then right to the right of that, there is a cave system where he was imprisoned overnight.
Okay. And for the benefit of those who are just curious about the Holy Land and don't have the background, this would have been basically at the beginning of the Triduum. Basically, this is Holy Thursday. They just had the Last Supper, and Judas was like, "All right, time to collect and do my thing here." And of course, where he was in Gethsemane is where he was praying with James, John, Peter, or Peter, James, and John, I should say, as it's normally presented.
This was a really this was one of the less. It was a sad place to be, actually.
I would imagine.
This church, it was beautiful. It was, but being down there and then seeing that old road and knowing that that's where he walked, where he was being escorted by soldiers. It was a very sobering, moving experience. And while we were there, down in the cave system, there, just by coincidence, there was another group from America, and they were singing lovely hymns, and it just radiated up through the caves.
Ah, cool.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
So I'm curious. Now, you bring up there was another group, so two groups there at the same time from America. Do groups come from other parts of the world to visit the Holy Land in anything like large numbers, or is this like an American phenomenon at this point?
No, there were people from all over the world.
Good.
When we first arrived, one of the first places we went was to Caesarea.
Okay.
And there was a group from East Asia who had, and if you think of a lot of the East Asian cultures, so the Chinese or the Cambodians, and a lot of the cultural displays with the flags.
Huh. Cool.
Flag waving and things. They had brought flags and were singing and praising and waving. So everywhere we went, there were people praying, singing. It was an incredibly multicultural experience.
Nice.
And you would come into a church, and there may be people from India with their minister, and he would be, because the churches are open. A lot of the churches are open and there for you to pray and have services, and they would be leading a service.
Very
so
cool.
It was really, so you heard all kinds of languages, and we ran into tons of Americans, some from Wisconsin, some from California, but we also met Germans, people from China, people from just all over the world, Sweden, everywhere.
Nice. No, it's good to know, because it's easy to, hear the way it's kind of presented, like only the modern American evangelical is obsessed with the Holy Land.
No, it's very much a pilgrimage in
true.
Christendom.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. And who's, I guess, again, for the benefit of the audience, who's taking care of all of these churches and everything that are down there? Because, I mean, we all know that there's basically, you can't swing a stick without hitting a church that's been there for like hundreds of years. Who's taking care of these things?
Just the individual denominations, and some of these churches are actually divided within a building.
Yes. Yeah.
Between different denominations, which is very interesting. Yep. Not always, apparently, what I learned, not always amicably, coexisting. So, for example, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, which is where Christ's tomb is located, it is inhabited by 3 different traditions. So we have the Roman Catholics, then we have the Orthodox, and then we have, and I could be wrong here, but I think it's the Armenian Orthodox. But again, don't quote me on that. I could be wrong.
That's likely. I don't know for a fact, but that seems right to me.
Okay. And they could not come to an agreement on who would lock the door or open the so who would close and lock the church at the end of the day, and then who would open it in the morning. So hundreds of years ago, the keys were given to a Muslim family, and this Muslim family has had the keys to the church ever since then, and every day they go there and open the doors, and every day they go there and close them. Because that was the mediator, essentially, between these quarrelsome Christian denominations. Apparently can't get along in the same building. It was a little bit discouraging.
I do remember a few years ago, I remember reading that there was a literal fight broke out. Basically a turf war broke out. It might have been in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. It might have been another one. I don't remember for sure. But a literal fight broke out between the different groups that take care of the particular church. It was basically just picture warring monks having a turf war.
That's an interesting thing to me that that's their solution to this, because in my mind I'm like, okay, what are some reasonable solutions and what are some ridiculous solutions I've heard of people trying before, like the rational one would be like, okay, so everyone take turns, like we'll trade off. Like that's the reasonable. The ridiculous, but I've heard of it before, is like, well, why not all three? Like they each pick one person from each denomination and each will show up. Like in my mind, that was like the ridiculous solution. But no, the actual solution is let's have a family who doesn't even attend any of these denominations, isn't a part of any of these denominations, doesn't even attend this church. Let's have them handle this.
Well,
that's our solution.
You're absolutely right. That seems like the most ridiculous. But as I'm thinking about it, I'm like, you know what? Taking turns wouldn't work because the Orthodox and the Catholic worlds, they operate on different calendars. See, the Catholic world operates on the Gregorian calendar, same one that like the rest of the world operates on, right? But for religious purposes, the Orthodox operate on the old Julian calendar. That's why they almost never have Easter on the same day. Because the Orthodox are like, no, we don't need your newfangled Gregorian calendar. Thank you very much, imposing your dates on us from Rome. No, thank you. We'll stick with our Constantinople. Well, it's still from Rome, but by golly, it was before we split, so we'll go with that one. and so the point is, different holy days would fall at different times. So you'd have the one guy going, well, this day's really important for us, so we want to be the ones to close the doors. We can't have you do it. This is the day we celebrate Saint so-and-so.
Okay, I was like,
it's very political, very down to the nitty-gritty with these people.
I was thrown off for a second because when you said saint, I don't know if like the computer just freaked out or what, but for some reason it sounded like you were starting to say Satan, and I had a lot of questions.
It's because you had that on your brain. Don't bring me into this. So before we got distracted, Paige, I'm sorry. Now, so yeah, lots of different groups are taking care of these, and in some cases, for hundreds of years, the same groups have taken care of these places. Correct?
Mm-hmm. Oh yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yes, yeah. A lot of these were established actually through Constantine's mother.
Mm-hmm.
So when he converted, he sent his mom Helen out to locate the holy places, and like Romans do at that time period, they were very extravagant. And so when one was located, which would be identified by the locals, because people going back hundreds of years had already been commemorating these different sites. And so then they would take the site, and instead of just preserving it, they would build a gigantic cathedral, a basilica atop it. And spare no expense. And that was actually a wonderful pleasure to see for me personally. I've never been to Rome. I've never had a chance to see any of Romanesque mosaics in real life, the frescoes, things like that. It was incredibly just breathtaking. Every single thing is a piece of art. The door is a piece of art. The door handle is a piece of art. Just the effort that the culture at that time took to build these places of honor. So while they didn't preserve the site in its natural existence, of course, some of them had no natural existence at that time anyway. They had already been desecrated. But in at least commemorating them, they spared no expense, and everything has meaning. So like right now, if you stop this, oh no, wait, sorry. I was looking at a different picture. But what you're seeing, there was a church just a moment ago, and it's at this location.
Right here, or the back yet?
Just just back a little bit. This is at the Shepherd's Field in Bethlehem. So this isn't what you're looking at is inside a cave. And if you go back just slightly, there we go. So there was particularly one architect, and I apologize, I've forgotten his name now. I should have looked that up, but I didn't think about it. Who designed a lot of these churches. So because this is Bethlehem and it is commemorating the star appearing before the shepherds in the field, this is in the shepherd's field. The roof, that dome, has circle holes all through it. And so at a certain time of day, the light shines just right. And when you're inside, it appears all over the circular interior as if it was stars. It's just everything was thought out and planned out. And it's such a contrast to American churches that would be strip malls and multi-purpose rooms. And these were just, they really appeared to be houses of the Lord.
Right.
And I don't know, I guess for me, just as an artist, it really affected me how, I mean, throughout time, people have used aesthetics to communicate and to commemorate. And it was just a beautiful experience. It's just a beautiful experience. It's just, I don't know, I just appreciated all the detail. I thought, gosh, so many individuals were involved and they labored. I mean, this is creative and masterpiece and physical labor. Every ceiling is adorned with imagery. Every ceiling is a masterpiece. And for those of you who don't know how that would be done, it would be done by creating a ladder and a scaffold where the artist would have to lay down for hours.
Yeah, it was bad. Yeah. And
paint or angle and prop themselves up. I mean, it's just a grueling experience. But it was just, I don't know, it's just fantastic. It's such a contrast to.
Oh, yeah. Well,
our people, bottom line, cheap, beige, everything is beige,
Well, like you said, most modern churches, and frankly, this same thing could be applied to many Catholic churches, not just Protestant churches. Most modern churches they could be just about anything for the most part. Or if it's like they're clearly not just anything, they still suck as a church. That would be applicable to the ones to the two that I go to most frequently here. So they're clearly not just, they couldn't just be anything, but as a church, the architecture is just terrible. it's like, oh, I wish the better ones were closer. But
I know.
Go ahead, Crystal.
And that's what's even worse when they try to update the architecture or design of a old church. Like we have a friend who's in Germany, and she said that there was a church near her where it was like hundreds and hundreds of years old. I can't remember exactly when it was built, but it was one of those really, really, like, it's a historical church.
Long before America was a country. The church was old before America was a country.
Yeah, basically. And it had perfectly fine architecture. Like, it was beautiful, made of stones. Like, it was like beautiful. But I guess the local government or some higher ups were like, we need to update this so we can appeal more to these youngins. Why don't we paint this entire thing black? And they painted over like the stoning and everything. They painted it.
Yeah, we had that happened all over, basically all over the Catholic world post Vatican II, when people thought that everything needed to be simplified by which they meant erased of any uniqueness and beauty. And basically murals were painted over, sculptures were torn down, and it just ridiculous, just awful. There's certain, yeah. In fact, there's a church, the church where I actually joined the Catholic Church at. They've got these beautiful, beautiful statues for the Station of the Cross. I've yet to see their equal, and they're just incredibly well done. And back in post Vatican II, there was a contingent that wanted to get rid of those as well, in addition to painting over some of the beautiful artwork that had already happened. Because I started asking, I'm like, considering what most of this church looks like, I feel like there should probably be more stuff on the walls. And I was told that underneath the beige, as it turns out, is there should be some angels and everything, but painted over. But they wanted to get rid of those Stations of the Cross statues as well. But that contingent was prevented because they were actually bought and paid for specifically by the parishioners.
Oh, it didn't good for them. I'm glad that happened.
The diocese. Yeah, it didn't come from the diocese or anything. So like, well, I guess we don't want a complete revolt on our hands.
So note to the Catholics out there, just go ahead and save up and buy the stuff just in case that happens again. Then you'll at least have something to adorn the walls.
Right. That's a whole different episode, perhaps in the near future, though. It's getting into all that whole situation that's going on. But people like to rag on a lot of especially the older churches, for being so ornate and everything. Are you kidding me? Yes, it's expensive to maintain. Yes, it was expensive to build, but it's, for one, other than just it obviously is meant to be a house of the Lord when you walk into it, and not an auditorium. Also, it's like you said, everything means something, and that was how you taught people back then. Before everybody could read, before everybody had the ability to read, this was your book. This was how you learned. And by the way, everyone could read. The church taught them how to read.
That's right.
So anyway,
that was one of the main things of the Book of Common Prayer, actually.
Right? Exactly.
And I think a lot of our modern culture has gotten too far away of the fact that God created us with 5 senses. And he think about the sacraments. He communicates and works within us through the sacraments, through physical, material things. Christ himself, the Lord, became a physical, material, fleshy thing to relate and to communicate with us. That was part of it. Right. That was part of it, to be like us. And people still today relate and understand and more fully absorb things when our senses are involved. That's how we were created, by our awesome creative creator. And there is so much beauty and goodness in that, and a richness. So I'd love to see Western society as a whole just recognize that more. Yeah. And return to some of that.
Yeah. Instead of seemingly running away from it. And again, this is an aside, but I dare say the running away from that is at least partially responsible for the exodus of so many young people away from Christianity, and actually specifically for getting back in, for the resurgence of paganism, because they do in fact recognize that we have senses, and they use them, they engage them, and they used it and engaged them wrong. But the point is that at least it's a natural human instinct, a natural human need that's like, no, I should be using all of this. Instead, we've abstracted worship so much that it seems and feels like it looks, sounds, and feels like and smells like, and it's nothing more than an intellectual exercise. Not that it is for everybody. I'm not saying that, but it sure as heck looks like it. What I'm, and it's hard to blame people for looking at it and going, "There's no life there, man."
Right? Yeah. Especially in denominations where you're mostly inactive and non-participatory. You will sing some hymns, but your worship is very much just, singing, but there's no kneeling or no sacraments, things that your body is involved in. We are a whole person. We're not just a mind.
Maybe that's where like the whole Black Pentecostal type culture, the Black gospel churches and everything, where they've actually managed to hold on to certain things a little bit more in some ways, because whatever else they do, they certainly engage some more of the senses than
well, and your body is more active. There's more standing up, more singing than usual, more standing up than usual than any of the I'd say non-Black churches,
right?
And that's such an overlapping category.
I mean, it's but I should just say just in general charismatic,
but distinctly African American church culture. So like missionary Baptist. So they have, or the there's an Episcopal, Methodist Episcopal or something like that. I can't remember. I'm sorry. My brain is not remembering right now, but
you're allowed to have a moment. It's okay. Sometimes they're subdivisions of other denominations, and other times they're their own denominations, but they have kind of retained that flavor of the African American culture in general, and not watered anything down in the service. I got in strip
so it's definitely more active, more involved.
Yeah, well, I think that is, granted, let's put it this way: it's not my style at all. I'm not that guy, but I will give them credit. Like I said, they are engaging more of the whole person with that type of worship than, like, say, where the heavily Calvinist area where I grew up, where the best you're going to get, you might, the average sermon is not really a sermon; it's more of a historical lecture a lot of times, and might be very educational, but it's not. It might be educational, but it's not necessarily.
You're speaking of the churches you grew up in.
Yeah, churches I grew up, churches around my general area, and I don't want to speak for every single one, of course, but in my experience, that happens a lot. And again, don't get me wrong, it's good for what it is, but it should be a lot more. But again, this is quite the trail, quite the rabbit trail we got off on here.
Yeah, right. But and actually, it was really fun. And I don't know what other pictures you have in here. I know I sent you so many, but
I think but most of the ones that you. There are, there were an awful lot of them. But that's not a bad thing. I'm just going to hit play again, and we'll just see what happens here, huh?
So if you see any pictures from inside the churches, this one in particular is in a cave, also in the shepherd's field. It's in the cave where they believe the shepherds stayed.
Okay.
But what was really very fun for me was, as we visited different churches that belonged to different denominations, each one had its own flavor. And it was really it was really fun. The Church of the Nativity, for example, it has an Orthodox side and a Catholic side. Right. And the Orthodox, any of the Orthodox churches, there are lamps everywhere. They hang rows and rows of these oil lamps. Or I don't know if they have light bulbs in them anymore, but they appear to be oil lamps. And they're gold and silver and colors. And there are 1,000 of them in a tiny space. And then you go over to the Catholic side of the church, and it's very it's beautiful, but it's very tidy. Whereas the Orthodox is very it's busy. It's very busy. And
the Orthodox they took all of that. They took the ornateness, the beauty. We're just going to ordain everything. They just leaned into that hardcore.
Yeah, I mean, it's like that one house on the street that has 5,000 different kinds of yard gnomes or different statues, and they have the flamingos and the spinning like flower.
I know that.
Okay, everybody, just so you know, what just happened was Paige just compared the adornments of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre to yard flamingos. Carry on.
but it was actually there. See, there are the lamps. But I loved it. That was like my favorite. I loved going to the Orthodox churches because in the busyness where the Catholic churches, it was more hands off. It was more relatable for me because, going to art museums and so forth, you don't touch the paintings.
Right.
Where the Orthodox, you put your hands on all over things. It was honestly, it was very lively and vibrant, and you just fed all this life in there. It was just, I just loved it. I loved all of the stuff. It was just fun. It was just so different, all of the different things. All of them were beautiful and reverent in their own ways. And it was just, but the Orthodox were really fun for me. I really loved it. I loved all those lamps and everything everywhere.
Oh, yeah. I mean, just looking at this picture, it's like, holy cow. They just, it's the amount of time that has to go into like just one of those lamps that you see hanging there. And I don't know how many you see hanging there. There's easily 2 dozen in that picture alone, I think. If you actually get into it and just start counting them up.
And they come down from these gorgeous frescoes. These gorgeous murals that have been painted upon the ceiling. Every ceiling is the Sistine Chapel, and they have everything is gold and silver. I mean, it's which for those not familiar with ancient faiths like Catholicism and Orthodoxy and things like that, the best is for God. So, there's a reason you use these materials. You make it the best because this is God's house. And I appreciate that. So I don't know. It was just really cool.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, they definitely, like I said, they went all out. And it's, again, when it comes to this kind of thing, the Orthodox got the Catholic beat in general when it comes to that sort of thing. And also, I'm going to go ahead and admit, as far as the externals go, they've maintained a much more traditional liturgy when it comes to the externals of how they conduct their mass and everything. Because while we let ourselves get a little too modernized in the post-Vatican II era.
Yeah.
the first time somebody walked in wearing loafers with an acoustic guitar, somebody should have said, wait a minute, we've gone too far. We've just gone too far. Get that guy out of here. At least get some box toes on those feet. because I do not want to see your toe jam, pal.
Or save it for the potluck.
Right, yeah. Afterwards, but no, just no. Actually, I'll be honest. There's one church that I go to extremely rarely. Fortunately, there is a guy who fits exactly that mold, and it's just like,
oh, wow.
I actually kind of dread. In fact, there's a good chance I'll be there next weekend. I kind of dread going there when I do. The music is awful, but anyway, that's again another aside. But yeah, that's just look at that. I'm incredibly jealous that I have yet to go to any place remotely like that. Yeah, because you go to like an old Catholic church here in America, and it's leaps and bounds over your average Protestant church. Although there's a few old Protestant churches that actually do they do a pretty good job too, at least in terms of architecture. But this is as far above at least any of the Catholic churches I've been in, as the best Catholic church that I've been in is over your average Protestant church. And I've been to the Basilica of the Immaculate Conception in DC a couple of times. So, which in itself is pretty freaking awesome, but this is just wow.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine being like a 2-year-old in there. Actually, I would just want to run and touch everything, or just sit there and stare.
Oh yeah, I don't blame you. I think I
no.
Yeah, not at all.
A 2-year-old would just be like.
Like I can just picture them sitting there and just staring, just not moving, which is actually kind of what I wanted to do.
They probably wouldn't get bored because there's just so many things to look at.
Exactly. You cannot spend enough time in a room to where you can see everything. It's just, and it really, so many of the churches, not just the Orthodox churches, so many of the churches were like that. There was these tiny, beautiful details put into everything that just, I just thought it was such a beautiful display of reverence to the Lord to go to such efforts. I just loved it.
I can tell, and two, I don't blame you. This was an experience, and the actually it is in fact a side benefit, not the point, but it's a side benefit that in fact the youngins are they are attracted to, or at least distracted by, this sort of thing, because, and I can say that based on personal experience, because an older, more traditional Catholic church in the area, when we do go there, which isn't nearly often enough,
Houston,
the kids, the kids, they notice the different, they notice the different stained glass windows. They notice that it's more ornate, and they pay attention to it. In fact, they'll talk about, when we do go, they've been known to talk about it for like a couple of weeks afterwards, being like, when are we going to go back there? Because there's more to interest them than a beige wall.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's when it's being restless, when there's like, okay, I've literally counted the lights as many times as I can. I'm done. And then that's where you get the whole, children's liturgy, or where the kids go off to go play in the back during the mass or the service or whatever, which personally I'm not a fan of, but
yeah, I think the kids should at least come back in for the mass.
Yeah, it's usually what happens with us is they go away during the liturgy of the word, and then they do come back during the actual order of the mass. But I'm not even a fan of that, because there's no transition as they get older, really. It's like,
what, like they're like, it doesn't cut off at a certain age, or
there is, but the point is that there's no transition. So, until you're like in 5th grade, you go out and back and you have a donut or whatever it is they do. And they do some sort of thing that is related to the scripture readings, but still they're singing, they're doing music, whatever it is. It's very kidified. And then all of a sudden, boom, you're right back over here. No additional context, nothing. It's just, all of a sudden it's like, well, now this is boring. Why? I don't want to be here. At least they're used to it if they just have to, be there. Even when they're younger. At least that's the way I look at it. It's not something that I'm not dogmatic about it.
Well, they don't have to go, do they?
No, they don't have to go to the children's thing at all. And we don't send our kids up there. But I'm not dogmatic about it, but I think I've got fairly sound reasons for not sending them up there.
Yeah.
It's like, you know what? You deal with your problem later.
And I would like to point out we are coming up to the last 10 minutes of the show.
We are. So Paige, I think this is did you get away? Did you get like out into the city at all? And into like, did you get away from the holy sites and actually experience a little bit of the more normal day-to-day culture over there?
No. It was pretty packed. We did meet with locals though. And who, especially Christian converts. And that was kind of just specially set up for our group. So if anybody who's listening decides that they want to go with the groups, see if maybe that's a possibility to add to your tour, because that was really just incredible. It was one of the most valuable parts. You've got so many different people groups right there in the Holy Land, and there's some animus between the groups,
right? Obviously.
And so then hearing from their experiences and the way bridges are formed between them, the way the Holy Spirit is working to create converts through them, it was really incredible. So, for example, in the Islamic community in Israel, the Holy Spirit is especially working right now actually through the women, through mothers, through married mothers.
Nice.
Who, and I have to say that the ones I've heard of, they have some very wonderful husbands, because a lot of the husbands are, they love their wives, and so they're permitting them to explore Christianity through other Muslim women who've already converted.
Okay.
And they're allowing them into their home.
Wow.
Some of the men will eventually then start asking to, the faith explained to them or what certain prayers are, and then they'll eventually let them start praying Christian prayers in the home.
Wow.
But it's working through converted women to the wives, to the husbands, to the family.
Very cool.
So it's really, the Holy Spirit is really very moving over there in lots of different ways. You still have people who end up having to leave their whole family.
Right. See,
and several of the women we spoke with had to do that, but to me, it was just interesting that it's more moving through the love of relationships between people. And it's beginning, I don't know, God's just using all of his resources, but especially relationships. With others, it's through with the West Bank area. A lot of the United Nations money does never, ever, ever make it into the people who have to live in the West Bank area.
Shock face. Very shocked.
Yeah, real shocked, right? Super corrupt. So, I mean, here in the States, we distribute backpacks and stuff and charity work through churches. Same thing over there. And sorry, my computer's trying to give me a message. But because of the landscape, okay, so we're talking about people living in the desert mountains. It was so barren over there.
Right.
And there's a lot of nomadic peoples. So just oh yes, tons. You see them just driving down the road all the time.
Oh.
There'd be a man just sleeping, a Bedouin man sleeping beside the highway with his donkey beside him, just taking a nap under the one tree that's there for 10 miles. Right. And so just distributing some things that are necessities, and then building relationships, and just not distributing stuff and then getting out of Dodge, right, but staying and becoming friends and developing trust.
Right.
So it's just I don't know. It was really beautiful to see that working. Even with the Jewish Christian community, the Jewish community there is very suspicious of Christians. And so it was actually an Anglican church that was the last church we went to, which was an Anglican church.
Yeah.
And I was like so proud. As an Anglican, I just was so proud of my denomination. And I just thought, this is so us. This is so us. I mean, it really is. But the church built a church there in the old city years and years ago. And instead of just gearing it to the Christians who live there, they built it, a school and things like that, for the Jewish community. And developed relationships with the Jewish community. And so even the Messianic Jews are very distrusting of Christians.
That one's interesting to me, but yeah.
Well, the Christians who live there have been Christians for generations, and it's a closed community. So they have not necessarily been that welcoming to converts of whatever religion.
Okay.
But this church operated differently, and so they have a Messianic congregation who uses the facility, meets there, they meet together. It has the menorah, there's a lot of items of the ancient faith that are utilized in the sanctuary. It gets in touch with our ancient roots.
For those unfamiliar, what's a Messianic Jew?
It's a type of Christianity that is practiced mostly by Jewish peoples who have converted to Christianity. They, like Catholicism, like the Eastern Orthodox Church, like Anglicanism, we recognize the Jewish roots of our faith. And so, like, praying the hours, that goes back to the psalmist. So it was Jewish practice.
Right.
So the Messianic Jews retain a lot of the practices of the Jewish faith, but they ditch the more rabbinical. The young man we spoke to called it rabbinical, and what he was referring to was legalistic. So like the law, how, like food. Laws around food,
Mosaic dietary
or
okay,
yes, or special times where sun up, sundown, things of that nature, but also retain a lot of their Jewish identity.
Okay. Hence the menorah. Okay. No, that makes a lot of sense. And of course, a lot of the, I mean, as you know, a lot of the prayers and everything from the old from the old Jewish faith, they actually got adapted into. They did get adapted into Christianity, and a lot of the forms and everything with the. I mean, a lot of the robes, the incense, and everything, that all just carried over from them. So yeah, I would
That's
imagine
right.
that. I imagine that a Messianic Jew would carry around a lot of that.
And that's one of the bridges that this Anglican church, this one in Old Jerusalem, because it recognized, because the faith utilizes a lot of the Jewish roots of our belief system and practice and worship styles. You know, anointing oil, little things like that that are rooted in the Jewish people. They used those things that we have in common, even though we're different, to cross bridges that were barriers, to cross barriers between different people groups. So it was really a lesson in, remembering what we have in common. And so converts can come there more readily now. It's been very successful.
That's great. No, that's very cool to hear.
Yeah, I needed to hear it after all of the divisions and having we can't even the Christians can't even hold the key to the church. They have to give it to the Muslim family because they're going to argue about who gets to open the
Monks
door.
hitting each other over the head with broomsticks and no, that's my freaking marble square to sweep.
It was a little bit discouraging, and to hear these Muslim women talk about going to church and then being rejected by the Christians in the church is not Christian enough or something. And I loved that the last church we went to was actually embracing people,
doing actual real outreach,
ecumenical work and partnership. And I'm like, yes, I needed that.
Yeah, I'm sure you were like, score one for the home team.
Yes.
And I'd say that's a very positive note to leave off on.
I would agree with that. So, we'll just have to have you back again here, Paige, in the near future to discuss more about your trip to Israel and some other things that you noticed upon your return.
Yes.
And yes. And again, and I know you have a new website and everything out, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
It's the Les Artistes. It is, I'm the administrator of it, but it's a creative outlet for regular Christians to express themselves. Because I'm an Orthodox Anglican, I don't publish things that are going to go against the historic creeds of the church and the fundamentals of the faith, as established 1,700 years ago, the First Ecumenical Council, so on and so forth. But poetry of lament, sharing artistic works, videos, thoughts, things of that nature. So we have different just lay Christians who are from different denominations who say, hey, I'd like to discuss this. And I'm like, here, come and let's publish it. So if I think it's worthy of discussion or will help connect Christians together more, and it's just a fun, creative place to do that. Cool. to get in touch with our, God created us in His image, and He is the creator. We are all creators of something, whether it be linguistically or musically or visually. So it's just a place to embrace that part of us.
Excellent. So that's at the lesartistes.com. Awesome. So once again, thank you everybody for tuning in and watching or listening. If you catch us on anchor.fm later on down the road. And until next time, keep on fighting the good fight, and don't ever, 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 ever forget Jeffrey Epstein did not kill himself.